Welcome to another episode of Candid Moments. Today's guest is a celebrity artist who just opened up his new art gallery called Nori Gallery, and we get to talk all about it today. Please help me welcome Brian Nori to the microphone. Hi, Brian.
Hey, how's it going, Candace?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Doing amazing. Thank you for inviting me to the show.
Oh, of course. Brian, I haven't seen you since one of your paint socials a couple years ago, so in 20.
It's been a while.
Yeah. Congratulations on the new gallery. That is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a dream come true. I've always been looking for a place to hang my art, and it's been challenging through this experience with COVID. And so it's been a great opportunity to get out there and share my art with the world. So feeling very fortunate.
Good for you. So tell me about your dream? How did this come about? Is it what you envisioned? But tell me.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always been a dream of mine for as long as I could remember to have a space that I can invite people to share my art. And so, it's always been in the back of my head if the opportunity arose, what that would look like and if I would jump on it. And I've had a few opportunities this past year to do a number of things and take different directions. And an opportunity came up with a reboot incentive for the downtown core. And I jumped on it. And so it gave me that space to be able to then build into this. And here I am.
Beautiful. And it's located on Cedar Street?
Yes, it is.
Which end, like approximately?
Right around Taco Soul. It's right next door. Or if you've been to Peddlers, it's kind of right across the street from there, just offset a little bit.
On the same side of Taco Soul?
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. And do you have, I have so many questions. This is for visual art. Like if people have seen you at what's it called downtown, what's that coffee place there where you had the lion picture?
Oh yeah, at Cup of Joe.
Yeah, Cup of Joe. They allowed you to showcase your art there for a period of time.
Yeah, Cup of Joe's been always really great with working with the local artists and such, and so I did show some pieces there. And from there have been other places as well throughout the community where different types of restaurants or such have been able to allow me to show my art. So the community has been really receptive all this time for doing these things. But obviously as an artist, I'm always trying to take myself to the next level. So through time, just looking to get somewhere a little bit more concrete. So
you're evolving, and I see it on social media. You're not just a visual artist or the guy who does the paint socials and it's guided step by step. You're a painter.
Yeah, I actually, like, a lot of things that people don't even realize about me is ever since I was young, I've been in the arts. And there came a point actually when I was in high school where I had my lifelong sketchbook stolen from me. And it was very crushing because it was very much a meditative space for me to find healing in some of the traumas that I was going through in my childhood. And so I took a step back from art for some time. And when I emerged back into the art field, I did it from a direction of graphic design because I kind of shifted my sales a little bit. I had gotten into computers and programming and such. And it was something that I could control. At the time, I needed a sense of control for what was happening in my life. And the beauty about computers was they needed a front graphical interface, meaning a graphic designer of sorts, to be able to make the software look pretty. So when I was about 16, I started my first tech company, and I got into helping brands build out their ideas. And it took me down a huge road from graphic design, 3D development, photography, editing, so on that side of things. And then I realized that I had a deeper passion for the arts in general. And I just kept on digging and digging because there was just so many needs. And I was just so, there's so much information out there that I could just sink my teeth into. And I've just had this deep obsession with art. So eventually what ended up happening was I just picked up such a huge, vast amount of mediums throughout my professional career, working in different fields. And now I'm really at a point in my path, and the art world is actually coming to a very beautiful epi point too, where I've been able to take all of these mediums that I've been studying for so long and being able to bring them into one center point. So when you look at my art, you'll notice that there's photography, videography, computer programming in there, painting and music, and all of these mediums have been passions of mine that I've studied along the way, and not really knowing exactly where it was taking me, but having a deep vision that someday I'd be able to kind of bring all of these mediums together and be able to share these beautiful pieces with the world.
I love it. I went on your Facebook page today and I keep seeing all these, what's the word? It's very stimulating to look at these images that are attached to music and that are moving. Painting has come to life, and there's like techno dance music in the background, and it's something else for people to see. That's called new media. Can you shed some light and explain that?
Yeah, so new media is just more of a digital form of development, and it's more of a broad range of different mediums that come together to be able to create a single piece. So the reason why I've been leaning heavily into this to this world and bringing in these mediums together is because the world has finally come to a point to be able to value these things in the art world in a strong way. When it comes to NFT technology, blockchain technology, the ability to be able to produce these things is merited.
NFT.
Yeah, so you've probably heard of Bitcoin, right? Yeah. So NFTs work off of the same technology, but essentially what it is, and the problem that these things are solving is essentially people have this sense of intangibility when it comes to a physical asset in a digital world. Okay, so meaning if I create a visual like you see on my site, where I create a painting and the painting is moving and it's got music, and all these things, it's very dynamic. Well, okay, that's great, but for the time that it takes for me to put something like together, how do I bring that to market, right? And so if I were to just put that on the internet, well, that's people can view it and enjoy it. But the tangibility isn't there because you can copy and paste it and share it, and it goes to all your friends across the world, and it really has no value, right? So with this new technology, it's essentially created a file that has military grade encryption in it so that you can't copy that file. And so there's a sense of unique value that is created from that. And similar to like with the art world, you have a beautiful painting, right? And that's one of a kind. Then you can sell prints. I could sell a prints to people of that piece, and I can offer maybe 100 prints of that piece to the world, or whatever that might be. And all of these pieces are given a certificate of authenticity, so that that there's value that is connected to that asset. And so the same thing applies on the digital realm now. Where I'm able to give you a digital asset so you can have this experience, but the main core idea of it is a tangible asset that you can then say, I own this. And then dependent on how the artist grows and their following emerges, the value of that asset can grow as well. So it's really empowered artists in a lot of ways, and it goes deeper than that. So that's just the surface.
Wow, that is so beyond like my little world over here. In your studio, do you have some of these digital pieces, let's say?
Yeah. So when it comes to this as well, so I really, there's two ways that I've gotten really excited about this. The first being is there's this emerging technology called augmented reality. So when you look at some of my
Thank you.
pieces,
That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah.
yeah, when you look at some of my pieces through an app, I've created different types of expressions of these pieces that are almost like a magic mirror effect. And when you look at it through your phone or whatever, your smartphone, you see these pieces come to life. So now, similar to what you may have seen, where I just put out a painting this morning of these waterfalls and the birds flying by, like
Which is
how beautiful.
miraculous.
Right. And so now how beautiful it is to have a piece that's hanging on your wall and you look at it through this magic mirror and all of a sudden you see that and you get the music effect and everything, it gives you this whole new dimension that you're peering into. Right. So I have that available at the gallery right now. And I also have, I'm a projection mapping artist too. So I have a projection mapped set up where I showcase a series of pieces of art digitally as well at the gallery. So part of the experience of coming to the gallery is just being able to watch that and see all of the different ideas unfold and just share that with you guys.
Interesting. Is there a fee associated with coming into the gallery?
Not right now.
Okay.
Like, I opening things up, I definitely have left things open for people to book. And so I've been here, for all of that. Now I have just shifted things over. I actually think I just changed it over the other day. I'm going to open it back up to being free for maybe another week, but I'm going to close it up and put a fee on it, mainly because I've had some cancellations where I've shown up and it's happened more than once where I've been here and people don't show up. So I just want to kind of hold accountability in some way. There is a lot of value in the experience. So I say, jump on it while you can, get your bookings in the next week. If you're interested in coming and seeing this, the expo is going to change too in the next week, coming into the next month. So it's worth coming in and checking things out.
Interesting. And time is money, right?
That's right.
Good stuff. Are you still hosting Paint Social events?
I am. They are sporadic, and I am actually going to be bringing in different types of courses as well. There's been a high demand on just one-on-one, different types of levels for painting. I've been working in different types of mediums as well, be it digital, animation, and artificial intelligence. And these types of mediums, especially artificial intelligence, have piqued the interest of a lot of people. And so I'm going to be sharing that with the people that are signing up as well.
And you teach people how to do that?
Yes.
Interesting. That is fascinating. I think I have, wait, let me grab it. I still have a Paint Social painting.
I love that.
I'm sure you remember each painting from like all the events. This is the last one that I did. And not too bad for a non-artist with one eye. I mean, it's such a fun event. And my girlfriend, Michelle, she still has hers. And I forget where we started. Do you remember where you started? Like you did the background?
Yeah. We do the background first and then move forward as we come into the foreground.
It was so fun. And of course I kept it because I'm proud of this. I was like, it actually looks like a landscape. I love it. It's so peaceful. And it was a night out with the girls and it was so social. I love that. Goes out to those. They have such a fun time experiencing that together.
Yeah. I mean, that's my favorite thing about Paint Socials. It's being able to show people that, yeah, you can do something like this and you can, jump into your sense of creativity and
with no experience
at all, just following along, and there's a logical format to it. And
I love that. That's so magical. Did you take art as a trade in school?
I mean, moving through school right up through high school, that was like my favorite thing in the world. And I was very much inspired by my family growing up. My mom was an artist and such. So I got a lot of my background from that. Moving into college, I did take it as a minor, and come, I think it was second year, I ended up taking a step back because my major was in computer science. And I recognized, based off of how the computer world was developing at the time, that I needed to step on the gun based off of where I was, and my knowledge base, that by the time I got out of school, everything would be obsolete. So I took a step back, started up my first tech company, like I said, and hit the road on that. And I was just kind of forced into learning from there. So, beautifully enough, it wasn't about school on going to university or something like that for arts, but since the internet is such a huge and vast area and they're always offering all these courses on everything, it's really been the most beautiful rabbit hole to be able to dive deep and learn all the mediums that I care for. So I've taken many courses through the online base, and it's really helped me. Actually, without it, I wouldn't be here today doing what I do.
That's so great to be self-taught and have the flexibility and the access to that so easily.
Yeah, following your passions, I've always been a huge advocate about, right? And the other thing, I think I got it from computers, just loving computers so much. I came up from an area where the internet was just being born, and we all had this ability to create new things that the world had never seen before. And through that, I had created some incredible technology that actually shifted the way the world works today. And I've always had this interest where I look at art the same way. I know that art is ever evolving. I know that our culture is ever evolving and technology is ever evolving. And it inspires me to no end to create ideas and modalities, techniques that no one has ever seen before. And I know right now, especially with the emergence of artificial intelligence, some of the stuff I'm producing, I know that people are looking at this and going, how is this possible? And I love that. It's almost like a magic trick. It's like, there's some
so
magic
cool.
in it.
So you're kind of a magician at the same time.
I kind of feel like that lately, I mean, it's a beautiful thing to be able to take all of these mediums and really take the study of everything and put it under one roof as a singular person. A lot of people, when they do create these things, they have, whole teams to be able to bring these things into life. And I admire that. And I just feel very fortunate that just because I've decided to take certain types of pathways through my professional careers, that I'm able to take these mediums and put them all together to be able to create these things that really have never been seen before.
I love it. You're definitely the definition of leadership. There's so many definitions of leadership, but you're trudging your own path.
Yes.
For future generations. You don't follow the crowd. Like me, I have never followed the crowd one day in my life, unless I was in a group and we were on a trip or something and I didn't want to get lost. Okay. But you follow your own compass.
Yeah. And I mean, I always enjoy, I could be in school. I am a student for the rest of my life. I know this for a fact. And it's just a matter, for me, just wanting to create this sense of invention, I guess, but at the same time, not in a sense, egotistical sense or anything. It's just, it's kind of like an art form in and of itself. And then, but my baseline has always been about my human spirit, right? And how I feel like I want to share with others different types of expressions. Like my creativity comes from this place of wanting to tell a story or share an idea. And then from that, or here, I'll give you a better example. And I'm going to be doing a course just on creativity, because it seems to be something that people are, try to find their inspirations, but they always kind of get a block. I think about sometimes about this idea of if I had 100,000 people in a stadium, right? And I only had about a minute to talk. What are those messages that I'd really truly want to share with those people? You know, are there things that I feel that could be expressed that could change the world? What are those things? And from there, it goes straight to pencil and paper. And then I start to dissect it. I start to imagine different symbols that could represent these ideas and putting those together. And then from there, I take all of those tools that I've ever worked with in my life and I start to put it together in my head and go, okay, now how can I express that through this? And I feel like the more tools I have in my toolbox, the more I could come to the idea of the expression in my imagination. And I feel that very less limited. And so that's kind of what inspires me to keep on moving.
Interesting. So yes, you are answering my questions, which is beautiful. What would it be in that 1 minute? Do you have an answer to that? What you would tell people
Yeah, I mean, it's always
that message?
it's usually the path in which I'm walking. You know, that's usually where the inspiration comes from. And so when you come into my gallery, you'll notice really quickly that every piece that I have hanging has a story behind it. And it's usually backed about this idea of personal growth and understanding and connection to the universe. I've had an interesting journey through coming from uh, really being knocked down through a health crisis and finding my way back up. And through that experience, I've learned so much about myself and who I am as a person, where I stand spiritually when it comes to the rest of the world, and through my journeys across the world to find that my healing. I've seen a lot of things, and I know that we're heading in certain directions, or I feel like we're heading in certain directions in our humanity. And there's always that kind of call out to say, okay, you know, this is who we are. This is how we're expressing ourselves. And maybe this is how we can change, you know? So that's
You want to
usually,
shed a little bit of light on that?
oh yeah. I mean, like, where do you
It,
go? Right.
it brings me
Uh,
back to one of our original conversations within the past decade, and it did have to do with healing.
right. Yeah. I mean, it's quite a like a deep conversation. We can go pretty heavily into it. Uh, the well, for example, the Panthera collection, the three cats that are here in the gallery. The expression there is really expression of the times, and it was expression of some things that I was going through in my personal life. And like I said, when it came to the healing journey, it's about finding what they're named courage, strength, and love, or self-love. And it's the journey inward, and it's the journey to find these different types of values and self-love within yourself to take yourself to the next level. And there are stories behind that as well. I have found that, well, to give people a little bit of a breakdown as to the depths of where I'm coming from, I was diagnosed with MS over 10 years ago, and I was like a hair shy of completely losing my ability to walk. And it was, I was in a really rough spot, and I didn't have any answers. The medical industry didn't really give me much to chew on, and it was just looking like I was on a road to destruction. And so I had to really come up with different ideas that were outside of the box because I had no other option. And one of those ideas, based off of a documentary that I had seen on Netflix, was to go down to the Amazon and work with a tribe down there called the Shipibo, and work with their healing medicine, the strongest of which would be ayahuasca, which has the active chemical DMT, which is known to be one of the strongest hallucinogens on the planet. And so, you know, like that, just the idea of that terrified me. But at the same time, I really didn't have a choice. It was that or death. And when we're faced off against death, as we all know, because this is one of the biggest narratives we've all had to face off against in the past couple of years, we you know, have to come to an idea of finding extreme measures. And so that's exactly what I did. And I found myself halfway across the world working in the middle of the Amazon jungle for about just over half a year, as it turned out. And the process of working with these healing medicines, ancient medicines that they had found, and it was something that had really given me the depths of perspective that I'd never even thought were possible. You know, I was looking for something that was very physically healing. Little did I know that I was stepping into a world where I was finding very deep spiritual and emotional healing as well, and dissolution of the sense of self, and really connecting back to a center within myself of deep flow and connection to everything around me. And so I hold a really strong value for how we treat this world and how we treat each other and what we put into our bodies mentally, physically, emotionally. And I have a lot to say, because it was like every ceremony working with such a strong experience was like, it was the depth of downloads and information that came from that. I could only describe it as literally 100 years of therapy in one session, and the perspectives that I was attaining in that world, and the experiences that I was having. It just really brought a whole new perspective of everything, and so my art really reflects that in a lot of ways. And it, as you could see too, if you ever follow my stuff, I do have a bit of a psychedelic feel to my work as well. So it's definitely where that comes from.
I've never done acid, but it kind of this makes me think of like an acid trip. Like, just because it's so like,
yep, everything's melting.
I don't know what the euphoric kind of stimulating. So when you just mentioned this experience, but you were there for half a year, so in 6 months, was it only one?
Oh no.
No, it wasn't, because the first time with ayahuasca, it didn't work. So you had to do it again.
No, it wasn't like that. Actually, the first time I was working with ayahuasca, it actually was the most beautiful, but at the same time, most terrifying experience I've ever had. And I was there originally for only a couple of weeks to work with it. It was a very kind of intensive healing space that was created for what I was looking for. I had actually then decided, because after I had gone through the experience and gone back after that first time and learned so much from that first time forward, every moment, every ceremony past that was just this beautiful unraveling. And when I ended up going back to Toronto where I was living, and at that time, there was so much pulling me back. I could just feel a shift in my energy. I ended up selling most of my stuff that was holding me down, and moved back down to the jungle and stayed there for about, roughly about that time.
Wow. So that it was more of a spiritual awakening, like that experience. What?
1,000%.
Don't know what that is. Can we shed some light on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a beautiful question. There's this idea, I mean, where do you start, right? I think at the end of the day, we're all walking around with pain bodies, like we've been living our lives, and we've gotten ourselves in certain situation. We're growing up in certain places where we're emotionally experiencing a lot of trauma. And from that trauma, we are learning to express ourselves as best as possible. But unfortunately, that expression creates more trauma. And so the way, let's say, our parents have afflicted pain on us, we subconsciously afflict pain on our partners, and these cycles continue to our kids, and so on and so forth, right? And we work in this, or we end up in this very reactive nature a lot of the times, just trying to get through our lives. And so it's kind of what I experienced down there was kind of the breaking apart of these ideas, and just kind of coming back to the depths of the truth of who I was before the world kind of got their hands on me type feel, and seeing these traumas and how they were affecting me neurologically in a very visual sense, I guess you'd say, because there's this crossover when you work with DMT, which is like, again, the active chemical in ayahuasca, where you have this, it's very similar to meditation. Actually, meditation does the same thing, where you have this crossover in between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And in that space, you can see a lot of the blockages within your body. And so I could say it like in the experience, it was like scanning my body. Literally, I could look inwards. I could see how my metabolism was flowing. I could see where certain areas like a river were starting to get blocked. I could observe it for what it was and see how there was past traumas that were literally connected to those spaces. And from that, I could basically pull that into a space within my body and then release it. And so when you start to go down ayahuasca road and start to understand, what that experience is for the, people that have tried it, you'll recognize really quick there's this element of purging where people throw up, and it doesn't look like it's a very fun recreational drug, is because it's not. And the the element of purging when we're working with ayahuasca is literally, it was the happiest experience, or one of the happiest healing experiences in my life. And I've never been happier to throw up, which sounds crazy, but it was very much knowing that I was releasing in this really interesting emotional way all of this pain and suffering that I had that was inside of myself. And so when I came back, actually, I was talking to people that have gone through healing and very highly traumatic experiences. And they had actually told me that in their process going through therapy, that they had experienced a certain element of purge too, when they were kind of going back through different types of healing modalities in that world as well. So it was interesting that there were parallels and such. So anyway, going back to this sense of, as you said, enlightenment, it's basically this returning back to a baseline. And so one of the biggest experiences, or the most incredible experiences, I would have to say, was this one ceremony that we had. Now, this is going to sound really intense, but there came a moment where it was like, okay, now you're going to die. Like there was this knowingness of like, this is it. And in amongst these prior experiences, I really knew to surrender to anything that came forward. And so I literally surrendered to what was coming, and I allowed death to come, if that was what was to come. And I literally felt like I turned from who I felt that I was into this small ball of light, just like as if you know the old TVs where you turn it off and it just goes down into this like singular dot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I felt like that's what happened to me for a moment. It's just, and then I came back and I thought to myself, well, that's kind of peculiar. And at the end of the ceremony, I went back to my tombo, and after working in these ceremonies, you feel this very euphoric feeling as it is. And I never thought anything of it. It wasn't until the next day, actually, that I started to realize that my mind really it was like at complete peace. It was like water in the morning, where you catch it on a lake and there's not a wave on the lake. It's just completely still. And it was a very interesting feeling, because after a while, I recognized that I really associate with these sporadic thoughts that were my mind, right? That would come up, and we always have these thoughts that are emerging, and then we break it apart, and it's constant chatter in my mind. And here I am, I've got this very clean slate, and I'm just like the observer. And this continued, and it continued for quite some time. And from that, I eventually returned back to the Western world, and I started to recognize that the mind did indeed start to creep up, and I started to have these thoughts again as they came, and it was very interesting to observe, and it's been a really interesting healing experience to understand where that came from. And we have this we have within us this programming, and we call it the ego. And this programming, it is essentially helping us to get through the 3D world, right? Like if I touch a stove element and I get burnt, well, my brain is going, I'm not going to do that again, right? And so it helps us to move away from pain and move towards pleasure. And it increases, the thought process along the way. And so that's just conditioning on all elements.
Does
And
that have anything to do with Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now?
that's one of my favorite books. Yeah.
I
Yes.
figured.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. And so that was the thing, right? So
I thought about that when you said the observer. Like when you become the observer of your thoughts. That's why I am incapable of meditating. Perhaps because when you say meditation, I don't know, I've never brought myself to that state. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
I've been in a meditative circle at the college where I fell asleep. And then when she banged the gong, I woke up and I was like, oh, I was so refreshed. And she said, well, maybe that was the rest that you needed. And I was like, wow, I failed at meditation. This is terrible.
Yeah. Well, again, yeah, it's an interesting thing, meditation, because we have these thoughts that emerge and they are based off of our conditioning mind. And then it branches out like a tree. And all of a sudden we're getting thoughts in our brains that may not serve us or don't seem like they are really from the depths of our soul, because we are essentially working with a computer. There's literally two energetic fields from what I've seen and have experienced anyways. We have this like energetic field that comes from the heart. This is our deepest place of being. And then we have to translate it through our brain for it to leave our mouth, essentially, if we want to express ourselves effectively. And so we are always in the space of gaining relationship with the mind in that realm. And so in meditation, because these are such sporadic seeds that come up, sitting with ourselves in silence isn't the way to do it. You know what I mean? It's just for some people that have a really strong mind, it might even drive them even crazier, because now you've got given yourself the ability to really like spread those branches.
Yes.
And so like, yeah, it's easy for people to really fall off track really quickly if they're
Are
not
you calling me
by...
crazy?
We're all crazy. Don't worry about it.
There's just certain levels of crazy.
Certain levels of crazy. But, oh yeah, I'm there too. The best people are crazy.
Like what's going on in there and what's going on in here are very different, right? That's why I say like different levels. Can I share something with you, Brian? This morning, absolutely. I have two boxes on my desk. One, they're John Holland cards. And today I got the crown chakra. I just shuffled the cards and I took one. I got the crown chakra. So it's purple. The sound is none or can be used. Oh wait, element, thought, gland, pineal, keywords I know. And it has to do with wisdom, because the crown is here. Yep. I don't know how that relates to me. It has to do with breath work and yoga, wisdom. Much of my pain comes from here. So but there's wisdom that comes from here too. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting.
That is interesting. And I'll tell you how that connects to this conversation.
Perfect.
So when we dream, when we pray, when we meditate, and when we die, the pineal gland excretes the same chemical that is active in DMT, or excuse me, that is active in ayahuasca, which is DMT. So in meditation, you're literally, the pineal gland is doing essentially the same thing as what I was experiencing. So for you to really calm your mind and find that inner peace, meditation is getting you there, but it's just the need to be able to know how to allow your thoughts to flow past you instead of dissecting them in that process that'll help you find your center.
Interesting. Is that a physical gland?
It's a physical gland. This is a physical
gland. Where is the gland?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like the eye of Ra in if you know ancient Egypt. There's a specific symbol that looks like an eye that is, a lot of people know. It's an interesting
it's not
study.
In the body.
It is in the body. It's in the very center of the brain.
Interesting. So it is
Mhm.
in the brain.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yep.
I was thinking this morning about awareness and people who are self-aware. Brian, do you consider yourself somebody who is self-aware?
Well, it's funny because people throw around the term awake. They're awake. And so it's like, give me a definition. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
I find words are thrown around very easily, and I could express myself for where I feel I stand, but you know, that's
Okay,
about
well,
it.
what do you feel? What does that mean to you when I say someone who is self-aware? What does your perception of that look like or feel?
Uh, I feel like that to me is like a balance in between the mind, body, and soul. Like I find it's very easy to get lost in the mind, especially with our culture. It's always engaging the mental state. It's always celebrating the mental state. And sometimes we get hindered by the inability to be able to really sink deep into our emotional state and connect the two worlds. So I feel like being in tuned with that is a self-aware person. I went through some pretty heavy trauma this past year, going back to your favorite book, Power of Now, which absolutely was God sent for this moment. And it was really interesting because I was going through one of the darkest times of my life. And I recognized that I went from my mind being completely at peace to like this monkey running around a room in my brain, banging down doors. And it was so traumatic. Like it was so, the change was so dramatic that I couldn't help but observe what was going on to see what that was. And I realized and recognized within myself that I was trying to control something that I was completely out of control of. And so I jumped into a whole bunch of books, and the book that I found was The Power of Now. And it really helped me to see that uh, finding presence in the moment and letting go of control of the things that had no control over, and really finding an attunement within my body for what is happening around me, uh, in an emotional sense, in a mental sense, knowing that the mind invokes emotions and the emotions invoke the mind, and to become more of the observer. That to me helped me understand how people can have awakenings through really traumatic experiences, because it's all about returning back to the now. So uh, can I label myself as that? We're always evolving, we're always changing. It just depends the moment. I try to be as aware as I can be in any given situation, but of course, I've come into connection with my humanity, and so it's always a journey.
Beautiful answer. I don't think I'm self-aware. I think there's been some levels of awakening, let's call it awakening, or a realization of certain things that also has to do with the brain. That's a whole other story. I don't think I'm self-aware. Most days I'm not. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe I'll get there someday. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a definition, right? And I think all we can do as human beings is just to be kind to ourselves and kind to others at the end of the day, and just sink into the depths of self-love. And like I just, when I hear certain definitions like that, it almost brings this idea of status. I'm more aware than you are. You're more aware than me. That doesn't matter. We're just on this human journey, and we are all in wherever we are, and it's a beautiful thing. And just go from there.
We're all spiritual beings having a human
Human
experience,
experience,
right?
absolutely.
I, I feel inspired right now. I feel like I need to read The Power of Now again. I think that would give me more focus, more being in the moment.
Yeah, it's
What
literally
a
the most
great book.
powerful book. And coming from a place where I've meditated for, since I was 16 and I'm 38 now, and really finding the depths of a certain level of inner peace and then going through chaos. I couldn't recommend that book more to anyone. I feel like that should be on a bookshelf that for every world leader, especially. It's
Yes.
like, you
Oh
know what I
my
mean?
God. It should be in the curriculum in schools.
Yeah, I truly believe that and emotional education and communication, all these things, to become more aware of ourselves and how we communicate with others, it should definitely be part of the curriculums. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I second that motion. So, wow, we went from art to like self awakened spiritual beings. I like how you never know where these candid moments will take you. As far as art or any kind of project, what is next for Brian Nori? Or am I not living in the moment? You can tell me that too.
No, I'm definitely working on certain things.
Okay.
I'm about to do a major release with my NFTs, so give people an option to be able to come in and jump on board with that. I'm moving at lightning speed, so there's definitely going to be an opportunity there. And one of my next projects creatively, I just released a hint to it on my Instagram and maybe my Facebook as well, where it's that screaming man. If you noticed, and it's kind of shifting and changing,
Yes.
right? So that's a part of a bigger installation piece that I'm working on right now. I will be building out this idea of this infinite zoom. I like the idea of the scream because it's like, where is that coming from? And I'm working on a piece where it'll be zooming into the person's mouth, and then you'll see multiple pieces of art as it flows through and deeper. And I really like playing with that idea. And you'll notice if you really look closely at some of my pieces, some people have coined some of my pieces like the spiritual Where's Waldo. And if you look, you could see there's pieces within pieces and such. And I love that.
I hate that game so much. Where's Waldo?
I loved it.
I hate that game. Like when I was a kid, my cousin Justin and he's like my brother. We used to always play that game because he had all the books, and we would always find Waldo in all of the different scenarios. But after I lost like my depth perception and lots of vision, I can never find what I'm looking for, let alone where's Waldo. So whenever someone's like, hey, look, do you see that? It's right beside, look. And I'm like, no, I'm not playing Where's Waldo. A bullshit
Meanwhile, your
game.
brain
I'm
is
not
melting.
playing.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah, it's a solid perspective though, right?
For sure, absolutely.
What does NFT stand for?
Non-fungible token. And I know that sounds like alien, an alien language, and it should sound like an alien language. But essentially what it means is that it has its own unique and innate value. So if I give you $1, or let's say a $5 bill, and you give me a $5 bill, and they're from 2 different years, it still retains the same value. It's $5 exchanged, even though they're 2 separate bills. NFTs, they have their own value in between exchange. So if let's say a kindergarten student has created an NFT of their pencil crayon versus Van Gogh, hypothetically, of course, making an NFT and selling it in the art world, there's going to be a difference in value when they're exchanged between hands. And so that's essentially what that means.
Okay, I'm going to write it down. How do you say it?
NFT, non-fungible token.
Non-fungible
token.
Like fundable?
It's not fundable. It's this funky other word. Fungible.
How do you spell it?
That's a good question. Fungible.
Fungible.
IBLE. Non-fungible token.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really actually, it's taken the art world in a beautiful different direction because it's actually helped. And it's something I've been looking for a long time as an artist. I love the idea of creating art and selling art, but the problem with the art world has always been the idea of once the art leaves my hands, it disappears. And God knows where it goes. And also, people have been very like been snipers in the art world as well. They'll buy a piece of art for like $100 and sell it for $1,000 somewhere else, stuff like that. And on the secondary market, artists have no ability to be able to retain any of that value moving forward. So with these non-fungible tokens, we are always connected to these pieces if we care to connect to them. So I may sell a piece today for $100, but if the value of my art goes up through time and the non-fungible tokens are sold in the market down the road for a higher value, I can retain certain rights for percentages upon that transfer. So if it sells for $100,000, I could have a royalty right of up to 10%. And so that's a little extra in my pocket to help me keep going as an artist. So it's been a very empowering expression for artists, and I highly recommend looking into it because it's definitely a new wave for investments as well, to be able to hold a certain level of value and support artists at the exact same time.
I like it. I forgot to begin the episode a certain way, so I'll end the episode in a certain way. Brian, and you don't have to limit it to 3, but tell me 3 things you are grateful for today.
Ooh, I used to, I need to get back into doing a gratitude journal. I'm very grateful that my health is the way it is, coming from my background, like I expressed. That's something that I always wake up every morning with a large amount of gratitude to even walk. I'm grateful for having this gallery, and I'm grateful for the friends that have helped me along the way to take me to where I am today, and friends, family, and everyone in between. So that's where I stand amongst so many other things.
Oh, that's great. My turn. First, I'm grateful that I woke up this morning. It's Tuesday. I woke up and I'm in one piece. And the people who know me understand what that means. I had coffee with my mom on the phone this morning. I love that woman. She's my soul sister. I'm grateful for having internet connection. I'm grateful for my ability to see, and for my brain's capacity to do all the things that I want to in my life, and to take care of myself, and to blow my mind all the time. I'm so grateful for my brain and for my ability to communicate. I can go on and on and on. I'm grateful for this interview, and grateful to meet wonderful people who blow my mind like you, Brian.
Thank you.
You're like
likewise.
Thank you. You're like a spiritual leader or a spiritual teacher. I was thinking about that when I was listening to you speak. I learned something really deep and profound, or I'm listening to it anyways, but I hope I'm absorbing it every time you speak. And it's I've heard you tell the ayahuasca story in Toastmasters and over coffee years and years ago, but I think at every stage of my life, listening to that story, I get something different from it. And I think that can relate to all of us in our stages of enlightenment, if you may call it.
Yeah. I hope that my story does help people to basically put a mirror up to themselves and find deeper dimensions of themselves. I know that at the end of the day, and I truly believe this, we come from this really deep depth of innocence. We're all born of this pure light, And as we grow into this world, we shift and change, and we're affected by so many things along our journey. And to me, it's all about coming back to ourselves and remembering who we truly are at the depth of who we are. And I hope that my story helps to inspire that we have that ability within ourselves to find that little spark of light.
Oh, that is so beautiful. We're going to end on that note. That was perfect. Thank you so much, Brian, for having a candid moment with me today.
Oh, thank you so much, Candace, for having me. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Let's keep in touch. There might be a book in Brian Nori. Think about that.
Yeah, there might be.
There might be volumes.
For sure. I'm working on something, so maybe.
Oh, awesome. I'll keep my eye open for it. I can only keep one eye. Waldo. Have a great day, Brian.
You too. Bye now.